Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Hegland. I'm the editor of the Tribune and Georgia newspaper. We thank you for coming tonight to our first candidate forum sponsored by the TNG and the College of Coastal Georgia. I'd like to briefly introduce the candidates before we get started. For Post 1, we have Bob Nutter. And for Post 2, we have Roland Eskridge and Elaine Borski. And for Post 3, we have Jim Camp, who's obviously unopposed. I'd also like to introduce our moderator for the evening, and that's our publisher, Jill Helton. Please give her a hand.
Good evening, voters, and good evening, candidates. So glad you're joining us tonight. I appreciate all of you traveling a few extra miles from town so that we can come to this gorgeous facility. I want to thank Holly Christensen and the College of Coastal Georgia for allowing us to use it and for partnering with us on this event. Both the College and the Tribune and Georgia work tirelessly to make sure we have an educated community, and this forum is aligned with both of our missions. We have also engaged a grassroots, nonpartisan Get Out the Vote committee in organizing tonight's event. The committee and this event started because of a conversation in the community about low voter turnout in our local elections. This is a national problem, but this committee is attacking it locally by encouraging people to register to vote, educating voters on the voting process, and spreading awareness about voter education opportunities like this one. If you want to learn more about absentee or early voting for the November 6th election, or if you want to get involved with the committee, I encourage you to visit their table in the rotunda on the way out. So thank you, Tom Canning, Jim Harris, Dave Southern, and many others for your efforts in making tonight's event possible, and for trying to improve our local turnout numbers. No matter which candidate or which party you support, I think we can all get behind this very good cause. So the format tonight will include an introductory statement by each of the candidates, followed by a series of questions. Candidates will be permitted to make a closing statement as well. Speaking time in each segment will be limited to 3 minutes per candidate. Please silence your cell phones and hold your applause till the end of the program, because we've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. So I ask the candidates, if you please switch on your microphones for me. Okay. We're going to get right into the introductory statements. And Mr. Moreno of Post 1 is not with us tonight, but his challenger, Bob Nutter, an incumbent in St. Mary's City Council, is here. Bob, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Just very briefly, I just wanted to say good evening to everyone who's here this evening. I'd like to thank Jill and her staff for putting this on. But most of all, what I'd like to do is thank you, the citizens, for showing up and giving up your time to wanting to become an informed voter and one who's knowledgeable of the issues that face our city. I personally want to continue to be part of the St. Mary's leadership team who listens to our citizens, implements common sense approaches to the issues that face our city, and promotes a sense of financial conservatism that is, above all, respectful of your tax dollars. Also, I want to do my utmost to promote and preserve St. Mary's so that we can, together, create a prosperous and promising future for all of us. As always, there are those who are have far more dexterity with words than I do. And so I quote from Andrew Carnegie, and this is one of my benchmarks. Teamwork is the ability to work together toward a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishment toward organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. As your council representative, I will never lose sight of the fact that I work for you, the citizens of St. Mary's. As your voice on council, I will always listen to you. I will provide answers to the best of my ability, and I will always be available. I will seek and speak the truth, insist on fairness for all, and strive to build productive goodwill within our city, with our neighboring cities, and the county. Thank you.
Post 2, Roland Eskridge.
Jill, I want to thank the Georgia Tribune for inviting me tonight. I appreciate all the people that are here tonight just to hear what we have to say. And we'll work hard to give you some information. Some of you might not know me or know my past, but my name is Roland Eskridge. I live at 611 Beale Street in St. Mary's. I was married to my wife Dottie, and we have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. I held the office of mayor for 4 years, councilman for 4 years. Many certificates of courses completed with Carl Vinson Institute of Government. In fact, there are 27 courses I've taken. Graduate from South Carolina School of Banking at the University of South Carolina. I completed the Atlantic School of Real Estate Appraisals and had my license to operate as a real estate appraiser. I went to the University of Georgia Community Development Leadership course, the first one given in Camden County, and completed that course. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, self-employed as a real estate appraiser, worked in the banking and finance industry for 43 years. Member of the First Presbyterian Church at St. Mary's since 1984, and also an elder. I have served the community in many ways during the 30 years in St. Mary's, as a banker, elected official, and organizer. I have had the opportunity to work with many organizations that are now in existence and serving our local community in Camden County. Because of the dedication, commitment, and involvement that I, along with others, have worked so hard to allow them to become viable organizations to serve all of Camden County. I continue to dedicate myself to the betterment of St. Mary's and I will do my best to see that everyone, keyword everyone, is treated fairly and equally in all of my daily future decisions as a councilman of St. Mary's, and see that no special group or groups of citizens receive preferred treatment. That's it.
Elaine Kowarski.
Good evening, and thanks so much for being here, and I want to thank everyone who took part in making this event happen. I'm a proven public servant and a proven leader. I am ready to represent you on City Council. I've been here 15 years, and I look back at my accomplishments with pride. I've been involved in a number of nonprofit organizations, one of them being the Humane Society of Camden County. During my time on that board, and as a fundraiser, I was able to help them collect $2,500,000 or $250,000 for their organization, which they desperately needed. In addition, the last few years, I've been on the Board of Ethics as the chair, and that's been a good learning experience for me. Through that position, I have really learned to understand and appreciate the need for transparency in government. Finally, I've been co-founder of the Coalition for a Better Community, an organization that requests everyone to perform in a civil manner and really encourages civil discourse. I believe for us to have a true democracy, transparency and civil discourse is an absolute must. I prepared myself in other ways also. I've attended numerous city council meetings, some county commissioner meetings, and I've always enjoyed really understanding the issues. I've tried to stay on top of both the current ones and the ones from the past. I seek out people with different opinions because I always feel that it is best to understand all aspects of an issue before making a decision. And the only way to do that is really understanding the other side from how you feel. Briefly, I'm going to talk about my priorities. The first priority, of course, is to create a stable and diverse economy. I think that is essential to the future of St. Mary's. Another one of my priorities is that I want to ensure that there is fiscal accountability. I know that taxpayers' money is being used. The last, or one other one, is that I really do believe in being more proactive than reactive. And the last but not least is community outreach. I take community outreach very, very seriously. And I thank you for your time and thank you for being here.
Jim Gant, Post 3.
I tried to decide what I was going to say, but I'm going to start out by saying thank you for coming here. We really need informed voters, and this is a wonderful crowd, and I'm so glad you're here. But I was thinking, what should I say? And I thought, well, maybe some of you know who I am, some of you don't. And so I think I'm going to try to say a little bit about the St. Mary's bio of Jim Gann. My family and I arrived here in 1982 as a Navy commander, Civil Engineer Corps, to help plan and design and construct the Navy base. That was the largest Navy peacetime construction program ever, $2.2 billion. And when we got here, we had no intention of staying here in St. Mary's, Georgia. We kept our house in Virginia. We were out of here after our tour, which is usually 3 years. But my wife and I fell in love with St. Mary's. We absolutely fell in love with it. The people, the history, the environment, everything. And we made a decision we were going to stay here in St. Mary's for the rest of our lives because this is the kind of community we wanted to be in. So after I retired from the Navy in '85, I became a consultant, at first managing the installation of industrial plant equipment and all the tried and refit facilities. And then I went to Jacksonville and I ran an engineering office in Jacksonville for 17 years. It's a large office of a very large company. We did a lot of things, and I'd like to tell you about them, but I don't have time. So after 17 years, I retired from that job and kind of went my way. And then I was called back to Panama City Beach to run their CRA, Community Redevelopment Program over there, a $300 million program. And I commuted back and forth between Panama City Beach and St. Mary's until the economy went bust, and then the program went bust. And then I said, well, it's time to sharpen up my golf game, and that didn't work. So I ran for office, and I was elected in post 3, which I am running for again. My goodness, it's red already. I want to say that I've been involved, and my wife have been involved in many things here in St. Mary's for 32 years. Highlights being chairing the Waterfront Park Committee, all the way through public outreach, planning, design, and construction of that icon in downtown St. Mary's. I was the president of Kiwanis Club. I'm involved in different organizations like Navy League. I was the chair of the College Commission. Right now, I'm the chair of the Intercoastal Gateway Committee. And that is what we hope to be the Waterfront Park, the success over on the Gateway for our downtown, which is so critical to what happens in downtown. I'm running out of time, but the thing is that we are committed. I say we because I'm married to a wonderful wife of 48 years. She's my strength. And we together want to do so much for the citizens of St. Mary's and continue to move forward as I move into the next 4 years. Thank you.
All right, now we go into the Q&A portion of tonight's program. The first question. County and city officials recently reached an informal consensus to unify the county's economic development efforts under the countywide Joint Development Authority. County commissioners also have committed $1 million of property tax revenue to the JDA. In your mind, what does this mean for the St. Mary's Economic Development Authority, St. Mary's Industrial Development Authority, and St. Mary's Downtown Development Authority? We'll start the questions with Ms. Porsky.
Thank you. There are many. I am very, very happy about the JDA, and I 100% support that effort. I think it is one of the most exciting things I have seen happen here in Camden County since I moved here. And I believe that as council members, we need to be 100% behind them and do everything that we can in our power to make sure they succeed, because it's our future they're working for. There are still pieces of that are in St. Mary's. One of them, of course, we still have a historic district. We still have a downtown district. There's areas, I think, where we can learn from what has worked in the county, and those little pieces that have stayed behind, for us to learn to figure out how to integrate them and speak in one unified voice so that we can really accomplish what needs to be accomplished. That isn't with the joint development. And I think there's a lot of possibilities. We have a lot of good people working on tourism and that type of activity. If tourism is going to become a part of our stable, diverse economy, then we really need to start getting pretty serious about it. The Epic Center may be opening in just a couple years. We have to be prepared. And I don't see how we can be prepared unless we start working together, more unified within the city also in order to get our goals met.
Mr. Eskridge?
The question dealing with the JDA and the tax money that is now being allocated for their purchase of properties, it disturbs me that really serious investigation or research was not done in that area before they went out and made an obligation to buy 200 and some acres of land where you only had about 58 acres of that land is usable land, the rest is wetland. That disturbs me to the point that more research needed to be done before we put over $1 million in that property. I'm all for a spaceport. I think it's a good opportunity for the county to have employment increase in the county. But I have another concern there. If the Navy is going to be so objectable to us having an airport, how in the world is the Navy going to approve rockets being used over not too far from the base as that place is? I don't know if you've been out there, but it's right across the water from the base. And I don't know how they're going to prove that, but if they do, good, they know more than I do. But I would like to see a spaceport come, but I think more in-depth research needs to be made. And as far as the economic condition in St. Mary's, we need jobs. I've had people come up to me and say, we need jobs in St. Mary's. Where are we going to get these jobs from? We've got an old paper mill sitting down there downtown. It's just sitting. Somebody's got to do something with that property. Property has got to be developed. It's got to be cleaned. And I think that is one of the golden opportunities for the city of St. Mary's to get something on that property where we can hire people in St. Mary's and have that income and tax base increase for the city of St. Mary's. The Tourism Council. I was on the Tourism Council for years. In fact, I was one of the organizers for the Tourism Council in St. Mary's. We worked very hard to turn St. Mary's into an area where tourism could be one of the top projects in the city. We did that. We've had numerous people coming in and town. They have plans in place on the Tourism Council for obtaining people to come to St. Mary's. They advertise on the interstate. They advertise in the Welcome Center. People do come to St. Mary's, but they come in to ride the boat. They ride the boat over to the island. When they get back, they're gone. We don't have a place for them to stay. We
Thank you,
need...
Mr. Eskridge. Your time is up. Mr. Dunn?
I too am supportive of the... Microphone. I'm sorry. Pardon me. I too am in support of the Joint Development Authority and them taking a bigger role countywide. I don't believe, though, that needs to completely mean that St. Mary's does away with their authorities. We have to harken back to a little bit in the past. If we go back 10 years ago, one of the key implementing agencies that brought Express Scripts to St. Mary's, Camden County and St. Mary's, was the Joint Development Authority. That was because we had a piece of property that was intriguing to a developer. We had the workforce that could support that, and we had the availability of an education system that could support that workforce as well. We still have those things. What we have happened, though, is first off, our cities jointly lost faith in the Joint Development Authority following an untimely death of its director about 10 or 12 years ago. There was also no further results after 2004 that brought a large employer to Camden County. So there was a lot of faith that was lost in the JDA. I think slowly but surely that's being restored. But it should not be restored at the expense of any one of the municipalities or the county. It should be a joint effort, as it says, by the municipalities, and in a recognition of that what is good for the county is good for St. Mary's. What's good for St. Mary's is good for Kingsland. Just when we focus on one city or the other, none of our three cities and our county by itself has the workforce to support any one employer. It's a joint effort, and we're going to have people that live in the other cities that will eventually work in the businesses that will be drawn to our area. I think as the economy improves, we're going to see that growth.
Mr. Gann?
I was at the meeting. It was really a milestone meeting for the county where almost all, I think all, the county officials and municipal officials got together and said, we got to do something. We're getting left behind. We're not attracting, we're not competitive. We have got to get good businesses in here, good paying businesses. I know we talked about how we educate our kids and they leave because of no jobs. But in that meeting, when we all came together, we said, we got to do something. And what are we going to do? We're going to have to pony up and put the kind of money into attracting businesses down here with incentives, maybe land, or whatever, in order to be a player in the economic game. We are being left behind by our counties around us, in Nassau and Florida and in Glenn. We have to do better. I have great hopes that the JDA, coming together like we all have, to promote the JDA is going to be in the forefront of bringing those jobs here to Camden County. And some of those jobs are coming into St. Mary's. The idea that we're now working together, we saw it again in the studies for the police and fire departments. We're working together. This is so revolutionary here in Camden County. Even the time I've been here, it's always been them and us. Them and us. Not anymore. We're working together, and we need to work together to bring good jobs here. Did the JDA get it right on the land? No, they didn't get it right, but they didn't buy it either. They were doing their due diligence. It turned out the land they wanted to purchase has a lot of wetlands, so they backed away from it. Okay, now they have to find some other land somewhere. So we've got to give this new entity, I have a lot of faith in the executive director and the chair of the board. I think we all know who that is. They're going to help us all. And I agree with Roland. We've got to do something about jobs in St. Mary's. And I didn't see that thing again. The mill site's important, but we don't control the mill site. We have no control. The only control we have on the mill site is zoning. That belongs to a bankruptcy court. It's being managed by an executor, and we have very little control. So anyway, I better get out of here.
Let's talk about another piece of land for a moment. About 5 years ago, St. Mary's purchased the Gilman Dockhouse property. While several proposals have been submitted to the committee for consideration, the city has yet to establish a clear direction for how to use this property for the benefit of citizens. What do you feel is the best use for this property, and what strategy should the city employ for developing it? We're going to start this time with Mr. Eskridge.
First up.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised that the city bought that property, to be honest with you. They buy the property, they tear down the building. You had someone in the wings that was going to buy that property and develop it. We lost somewhere around $13,000 a year in tax revenue off of that property by buying it. This property is sitting right now with no revenue coming in off of it. So that leaves it up to you to fill the gap. I believe it made a nice park, but we have a park. I think it should be developed to the point where it would have a place for people to come to St. Mary's and have a place to stay. We have bed and breakfasts, but they only have so many rooms. We can get the people coming in using that boat to go to the island. They come in, go to the island, they come back, and and they're gone. We need something to keep them downtown to spend their money. We need that tax revenue. I'm fully behind having something built on that property that would serve the community. I just don't believe the park is the right thing to go on the property, but that's my personal opinion. I think we should have some kind of, maybe a two-story hotel or something there that will give people a place to stay, a place to eat, a place to ramble downtown and spend the money in our businesses. Our businesses need that revenue. The park is not going to bring us revenue. It might bring people in, tourism, but they are in and out. I really am disappointed from the very beginning that property was purchased by St. Mary's. Maybe that's not a good thing, but that's my personal opinion.
Ms. Forsty?
Thank you. I believe you asked for a strategy as part of the question, please.
What do you feel is the best use for this property, and what strategy should the city employ for developing it?
In the beginning, after the city bought the property, there was a lot of citizen input, and criteria were developed in order to monitor or evaluate possible development on that property. The criteria were well thought out and sound. Of course, it involves protecting the environment and several other factors. The intent of the city is to get a developer who will put a business in there that goes along with the criteria that have been established, and hopefully bring in more people into the downtown area to utilize the park and every place else that we have available. There's been some activity putting in more docks. More docks, I think, is good because in the long run we'll attract more water traffic, which is a very big positive and very popular for individuals to go out, buy boat, find a place to eat. So I think we're on the right track. Right now we're with a current marketer who is working, has another year. I think we have to stay on top of this to make sure that if we need to make changes in our plans, we do so in a timely manner. In the meantime, it would be nice to have the property fixed up a little bit so that citizens could use it while we're waiting for the right developer, have a couple park benches there, picnic table. But the long-term goal has to be to find the right partner to develop that property in a way that'll be good for the whole city.
Mr. Gann?
Well, I'm going to go back to when the property was purchased. I wasn't on council, but let me tell you, I applaud the leadership of our council members when they bought that piece of property. They showed guts, and that's what leaders do. They show guts over a lot of criticism, But that piece of property is an absolute jewel. It is the key to our downtown. I can remember when we were trying to foster the waterfront park. There were a lot of people, not a lot of people, there were a vocal set of people that said, we don't want a park. We want a gas station or a condo or something that's going to bring in tax revenue. Wrong. It would be terrible if that would ever happen. And thank God that the people here in St. Mary's said, no, we want a park. And of course you've got the icon you've got now. We have such a small waterfront. Every little square inch of it is so vital to maintain that waterfront. That's part of our historical heritage. The Gateway property is not a park. It never was intended to be a park and won't be a park. The Gateway Committee, which I chair, wants the public to use that property as long as they can until we find the right development that fits there. Now we've got 5 objectives for that property that's been set by the Gateway Committee. 1, it's got to fit into the historical fabric of downtown. 2, it's got to be environmentally compatible. 3, it's got to have public access, and we're providing that with walkways along the seawall. And that's a separate entity now. We've separated the 25 feet along the sidewalk, so you always have the public walkway, and those piers all stay public. The rest of the property is up for development. It has to be something that's economically viable, and it's got to be a destination. Whatever we put down there has got to stimulate our downtown. We have nothing in downtown. We can't even go to breakfast in downtown. It's terrible. And if we get the right development into that property, that will be the catalyst that's going to spur off little shops and little businesses and other things that's going to bring the people downtown. And so I couldn't support that property more. Give us time. We went out with 2 RFQs, didn't get any qualified bidders on that. We've got now a very, very accomplished lady who, if you want to look her up, she's the head of the Forum Group. She is out there beating the bushes and going to bring that right development to us. We pray. But even if she doesn't, keep it until the right development comes. You can't let that vital piece of our waterfront be sold off to just anything.
Mr. Miller?
What they said. Going back to May or June of 2010 is when that property was purchased. And I have to admit, I was one of the people that was against that purchase. However, the city decided to move forward. They made the purchase. That means you and I own that piece of property. What that means very succinctly is that it's in our best interest to pursue those avenues that will develop that property into something meaningful. I believe I also, when I was elected in November of last year to fulfill the remainder of the term, was also assigned to the Gateway Committee. And we did set up an agreement with the Forum Group wherein they have a 2-year exclusive on developing or finding a development partner. Ms. Cochran, who runs that, has been working diligently. There have been many visits to downtown that come into town to look at it. What we have to realize is that this is a critical business opportunity, a business development opportunity. And these prospective developers are not going to come into town and say, oh, by the way, I'm a developer, I'm going to build something on your property. They're not going to do that. The way it is done is that they'll come in quietly, they'll survey the property, they'll look at the city, they'll meet discreetly with people such as Jim, chairing that committee. They'll meet with the mayor. Again, these meetings are totally confidential. They're not allowed to talk about this in public because it involves predominantly other people's money, the investors who will actually bring the project to fruition. We have to have a bit of faith with this property that the right development will come along. I've heard a hotel conference center mentioned. One thing you can look at very directly is drive over to Fernandina, go down to the waterfront and look at the Hampton Inn, this catty corner from Brett's. That is on a sized piece of land that is comparable to what is the Gateway property downtown. Now, I'm not saying we need to build a hotel that big. I'm just saying if you want to look at a building on a footprint, on a piece of land that's comparable in size, that would be something you can actually visualize and put your hands around. By way of things that used to be in this town, the quilter and crafts people used to have a convention here when we first came to town, 6-7 years ago, I'm thinking. And they would bring 1,000 or 1,500 people into town and mill about smartly doing their craft and scrapbooking and quilting things. I would like to get that group back. But right now, we don't have a facility to do that. And there is the possibility that this property can provide it.
Thank you. We invited a lot of our readers to contribute questions for this event tonight. I'm going to share one of those right now. We have seen positive signs that efforts to improve cooperation between the 3 cities in Camden County are paying off. Likewise, the public and political discourse in St. Mary's has changed. What do you think can continue? What do you think we can do to continue to build on this, and what do you think is the right way for someone to disagree in public? All right, that goes back to Bob. Let's start us out. If at any time you want me to repeat the question, I'm happy to do so.
No, I think it boils down to what I have seen over the course of the last probably 10 years is with this particular council that we have seated right now, a respect for each person that's serving that wasn't necessarily the case prior to this council. I think that what we've seen for those who attend the meetings is that there's a comfort level among the 6 council members that are currently seated, where we can disagree with each other, and everybody accepts and expects their word. We don't have one person interrupting another. We don't have, let's say, euphemistically, I'll call it the 4-2 bookend votes that we used to have, where Sydney and Greg would sit on the outside, and they always seemed to be in disagreement with the 4 that were in the middle. This was something that was very apparent. We don't see that now because we have a camaraderie, we have mutual respect, and we allow each other to voice their opinion in a safe manner that is respectful of the citizens who are sitting out there watching and participating in our council governing each other. I personally want to see that continue. I want to be a part of continuing that, and that is my pledge.
Ms. Kowarski?
I am very pleased with the way everything is going right now when it comes to that. I can honestly say that in all my years of management, I always said to any of my direct reports, please disagree with me. As long as you have good rationale, you can come up with an alternative. I want you to disagree with me. Disagreeing and talking it out ends up that you end up with a better decision. And that's why I like to seek out other opinions. It's because you really do. There is nothing wrong with disagreeing. There is nothing wrong in disagreeing if the council sits up there and disagrees in front of public, because this will bring out the rationale behind it. And as long as everyone is listening to each other and contributing, I think it is a wonderful process. I love civil discourse.
Mr. Eskridge, next.
Well, I have to agree with Bob. The council does work well with each other. I've been to a number of meetings, and the discord seems to be cordial. I don't see anyone bursting out, making accusations one to another. And we had that, something similar to that back when I was mayor. We only had one that continued to disagree with everything just about. But the discord is real good on the council at the present time. We just need to get more people involved in coming to these council meetings where they can have more input. The same people, meeting after meeting after meeting, are the ones that are there. It's not a good representation of the city, and we need more people coming into the city, especially the council meetings. I congratulate the current council on the way they operate. I have no problem with it. Just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Mr. Gann?
I've been asked to address the Camden Roundtable. Roland's going to be there at the same time. I think it's a couple weeks from now, I can't exactly remember. But what I'm supposed to address are our accomplishments and what we see in the future as our challenges. And at the top of my list is the civility that the council now shows to one another. We've got a great council. It's balanced, very experienced. We've got lawyers and engineers and human rights and human relations people like Bob, and we come from it from different areas of expertise. But we come together, we debate it, we vote, and it's over. We move on. And that is so refreshing, because I was there with the 2 bookends, and that was not good. And incidentally, this has set a whole tone for the city, in my opinion. If the council is leading in a civil way, in a professional way, I think the civilians, the citizens, are also going to get that idea, and hopefully we can all have a much better society for it. And it carries over into the county. look at what we're doing with the JDA, look what we're doing with what we did with the study with the fire department and with the police departments. Who would have ever thought that we could come together like that and study all these things and come out with real good ways forward, recommendations and what have you. So again, if I had to say the number one accomplishment in the last 3 years is how this council reacts with one another and treats one another and moves forward to address the city's business.
Thank you. During the last year or two, the council has discussed ordinance changes to limit the number of cars parked on private property and address other nuisance issues. Some citizens have argued proposed ordinance changes were too restrictive. While nothing has been implemented, where do you draw the line when it comes to government intervention in a private citizen's use of his property? Mr. Gang, can you start us out on this one?
That's so tricky because, you know, here you are, you've got a government, you have some people saying, that's terrible what they're doing over there on that piece of property. We've got to clean it up. We got to do this, we got to do that. Or they got too many cars out there, the grass needs cutting. Well, it is a fine line between what the government can do, the city government, and what the private prerogatives of people and their homes and whatever. I've heard so many complaints about downtown and the different businesses downtown, and do they really take care of things downtown? Well, we would like to encourage that as a city council, but you can't police it. You can't tell people exactly what they can do with their property. Now, if it involves safety, if it involves health, or if it just becomes a plain nuisance, you can act. But it's difficult. Now, one of the things we have done is we have hired a code enforcement officer. And he's still getting his feet on the ground, but we're planning to have a presentation. I think it's on the first council meeting in November. Our code enforcement officer is going to give a presentation on what he's found out there. And I think he's been there maybe 5 months, 6 months, something like that. And he's going to show PowerPoint photographs of the things that we have to try to help. Grass, rundown shacks, places that are just terrible. And we want to do so much for them, but there's so much you can do. Now, I think the code enforcement officer is a big step in the right direction. And as he gains traction, as he learns his job, he's going to be able to come back to city council and say, I need this, or I need this tool in order to do my job better. And so we're very hopeful that that's going to happen. But it's difficult, so difficult, because some people just don't care.
Thank you. Mr. Eskridge.
That's a hot topic. I was really surprised to see that ordinance passed, or even submitted to tell people how many cars they can have in their driveway. That's getting too personal. That's infringing on the rights of individuals. And if it's a junk car business on that property, yes, it needs to be cleaned up. But just because someone has 4 cars and they're not, and the ordinance says they can't have 2 in a driveway, that's not going to work. You're dealing with an old town. You're dealing with old people that have been living here for ages. And you're telling them that they cannot have people park their cars in the yard. That's bad as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the grass cutting, I know there was an ordinance passed where individuals own businesses, they need to mow the grass in front of those businesses. What did they pay taxes for? We have a street department. Let them mow the yard, the curb type grass. That's the city's responsibility. That's the city's property. But individuals have been given the responsibility to mow in front of their businesses. That's not right. That's just not right. And we get into as a council person. You run the city, but you can't tell an individual what he can do on his own property. You can tell a person to move junk cars off his property or tear down an old house that's about to fall down. You can take care of that. But as far as other issues dealing with private individuals and businesses, just talk with them. Don't put ordinances out there telling them they've got to do this or they've got to do that. The city shouldn't be run that way. These people are here long before we ever came on the site. Just remember that. Thank you.
Ms. Forsby?
Having rights and freedom is such a wonderful thing we have, and it needs to be protected. However, there are instances where a person becomes so involved in protecting their own personal rights that they infringe on the rights of their neighbors. So any laws that are established, I think should be developed in such a way that they would address when a person's individual rights start to infringe on the rights of others, whether it be for safety reasons or health reasons. Those are the two primary ones, because we have to take our rights seriously, but we have to remember others around us also have the same rights, and to be rude and expect and take more for yourself and take it away from your neighbors is also inappropriate. So it's a fine line, definitely, and I think that ordinances should work towards resolving the extremes of any situation.
Mr.
I agree that this is a very tricky topic. Where do we draw the line on individual rights versus rights of the community and what we can expect as far as the quality of life? And that is a tough balancing act. But I think the one thing that we need to realize is that our city is more than just downtown. It's more than the Kings Bay Village shopping center. It's more than Crooked River. It's more than Shadowlawn, or it's more than Osprey Cove or Point Peter. As we look at these neighborhoods, I feel that if a car is fully licensed and operable, not a problem. I see a problem if there's 10 cars parked in one yard. I see a problem if a yard is overgrown. I see a problem, for example, with the closed down boat dealership that's on Spur 40, right next to the Cumberland Inn and Suites, that hotel there. It's overgrown with 2 and 3 and 4 feet of grass. It's my understanding that property is in foreclosure. Then it should be the bank coming in and mowing that grass. We have the curb overgrown with grass in front of the box plant. That should be taken care of. There's so many areas. Drive down Hollywood Lane or Olympic Lane and look at some of the ramshackled, overgrown houses there. Our citizens should not have to put up with that. We need ordinances to control those types of things and try and bring that to closure for the quality of life of all our citizens, not necessarily one citizen. And so that's the balancing act that a council has the responsibility to look at, is not what's good for the one, but what's good for the all. And that's really where we need to focus.
Thank you. What do you think of the request made by State Representative Jason Spencer and some city residents to move to voting districts rather than at-large posts? Ms. Forrest, will you start us off on this one?
Yes, I will. Before I answer your question, I want to make a statement relative to the fact that all of us up here are running in posts that are at large this time. And it will be our responsibility to really represent every single person in the city. And I take that very seriously, as I know all of those up here do. So we are running at large posts, and any action taken will not affect this election. As far as Spencer's proposition, I've seen the map. I'm not sure that the map, the way it's districted, will really resolve the problems that have been addressed by Mr. Jones and others in the community. disenfranchised citizens is a very serious matter. And citizens feeling disenfranchised come from many reasons, not just one. And often that is not geographic. I believe we have to seriously think about this topic. There is no quick fix. One little step is not going to solve the problem. It is a complex problem. It needs a multifaceted process or activity in order to really resolve any issues. So another reason I'm a little hesitant about districting, truthfully, because of the fact that everything we're doing now is trying to come together as one voice, trying to be unified. We're finding out that one voice is always stronger than 6 voices. So if we can, I'll be open to anything that the citizens groups decide. I know there's a lot of research going on. There's many methods for districting. All of them should be considered. There's pros and cons to everything. I just hope that we as citizens won't let ourselves be comfortable looking at one step as being the solution, because it really needs a multifaceted approach if we're going to really address the problem of low voter turnout and disenfranchisement. It's a serious issue.
Mr. Eskridge?
Well, you know, districting is going to be a complex issue. I'm somewhat in favor of districting. I've looked at the map. I see how this current council makeup is listed on those districts. And we've got to do something. Is that on? We've got to do something to get people from other areas to come in and take part in the city. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people to come in and vote. I just don't believe the people in the areas north of the city have a big turnout. I just believe it's a small turnout, and the downtown and Osprey seem to be the major areas that are doing all the voting. I feel like we've got to do something that those individuals' areas have got to have proper representation, where the people in those areas can have their regular meetings with that individual and express their desires, what their frustrations are, and suggestions that can be brought to the council. As I stated in the council meeting the other night, they're not going to come to the council meeting because they have no one that they're really closely related to from their area. When we get someone that they know in the area that they can talk with, go to, put their frustrations out on the individual, then I think we'll have more participation on our council meetings. At least one individual will know what the problems are in that particular area that's not being disclosed. So right now, I'm sitting on the fence on districting. I think that possibly it's going to be could be good for St. Mary's. Those areas that were drawn on that map averaged around $2,800 per district, and 2,800 people per district. And that's not bad representation. If you get the 2,800 to vote, what do we have? Somewhere around 1,600 total vote. That's not good for St. Mary's. So I'm sitting on the fence, and I'd like to see some suggestions come from the citizens of St. Mary's. What do they think? From the areas that are not being represented, what do they think? I'm open. I've got a telephone number. It's in the telephone book. Give me a call. I'd just like to know. But right now, I think it's a complicated situation, and we just can't take the first issue thrown out there by our state representative as it. Thank you.
Mr. Nutter?
I do not believe that the talk about districts is the panacea that some people purport it to be. I think that it's a decision that the citizens of St. Mary's need to make. It does not need to come from a citizen of Woodbine or a citizen of Kingsland or a citizen that lives in the county. That needs to come forward from us citizens in St. Mary's first and foremost. I also feel that the citizens of St. Mary's cannot necessarily make an informed decision until they're fully educated on the process and the complexities that they're going to be asked to look at. This would include things like, which nobody's mentioned yet, what if a district does not field a candidate? Do you sit now and just seat 5 individuals on the council? Or do you seat 5 on the council and then vote to have someone come in? The other thing is that for an individual to step forward and put themselves on display publicly, like the 4 of us are this evening, for example, takes a lot of intestinal fortitude. Not everybody has that to come up. They do have the ability to call and talk to people. I've had people from downtown St. Mary's contact me about issues. I've had people in Gaines Davis contact me about issues that they were concerned about. I've had people in Chavalon talk to me. So I feel, for me personally, that I'm open because people call me, people talk to me about some of their issues and concerns. I can't fix everything, but I can promise them that their issue will get an airing and they will get an answer to their concern. District voting will not field candidates. District voting will not instantly generate a cohesive community. For example, we're getting ready to spend, or we've committed to spend, and a shovel will be thrown in the dirt shortly for the Gaines Davis sewer project. That's going to end up being about $4 million, and it's being spent from predominantly SPLOST money. If Gaines Davis is in District 1 and Point Peter is in District 3, will we have the citizens raising Cain saying, "Where's my $4 million?" Will we have them from District 2 or District 6 saying, "I want my $4 million also"? So we don't want to put on another layer of complexity, another layer that will divide our city just because it feels good right now and sounds good right now. And first and foremost, our representative, Mr. Spencer, needs to realize that this is not his issue to determine for St. Mary's. This is a St. Mary's issue to be determined by St. Mary's citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vetter. Mr. Gann?
Well, I'm open, but I'm very concerned about this subject. Well, for your information, the city is scheduling 3 workshops, and they will be made public very shortly. I think there's 2 in November and 1 early December. And we're going to start taking input from the citizens. And that's so important. I have my concerns. Just like Bob, I have a lot of concerns, but I need to keep somewhat open because we need to hear from our citizens. This is the most important subject that I have heard or known or come up to us in the 3 years I've been around, and maybe a lot longer than that, because this involves your voting rights. Are we providing with districts more voting rights, or are we disenfranchising people? Are we going to eliminate the best qualified people if we have districts running in our small little community? I think maybe. You know, we have 17,000 citizens in St. Mary's, of which about 8,000 are registered, of which about 2,000 or 3,000 vote, depending on the election. Now we're going to compartmentalize these people into little boxes or fiefdoms. And now we're going to have these little fiefdoms set up where some of these fiefdoms are going to be very active, like they are today when it's at large, and some of them are not going to be active at all. It's just the way it is. It's the way our town is laid out. The one thing that I've got to stress, this is not something that the state needs to levy on the citizens of St. Mary's. This is something that the citizens themselves have to come to grips with and vote what we want to do. I'm going to listen with an open heart and mind, but it is a very serious consideration. I urge you to tell your fellow citizens, your yourself to understand the difference between districts and at-large voting. Again, we're not the big city, we're a little city, and why would we try to put our little people in little boxes? It bothers me, but we will see. Attend those workshops.
Thank you. Here's another reader-contributed question. NOAA Georgia Sea Grant is in the process of a detailed study regarding adaptation, resilience, vulnerabilities, flooding, and sea level rise in St. Mary's. Do you support this study, which was obtained through a NOAA grant, and do you consider these matters a priority for City Council? Mr. Nutter, will you start us out, please?
The short answer is absolutely critical to our future. Not only from an economic development standpoint, but also from the flood insurance standpoint. I'm not sure how many citizens have flood insurance in St. Mary's, but if you don't have it, you're taking a big risk. So, with that, that's part of the whole reason that NOAA was there, was to help us with our community rating system to get our flood insurance rates to the lowest ability. We also know through climatic action that our sea level is rising. Just over the last 85 years, the sea level at Tybee Island has raised 11 inches. That's not somebody saying this is science or this is a guess, this is whatever. This is a fact. With an increase in sea level, what you'll have is that at king tides that we have generally in the spring and the fall, water will encroach further into the city. Our ditch and drain systems will not be able to have this overflooding and handle it. We need a viable set of tools and options available to us for consideration as to what would be meaningful steps in a meaningful order to accomplish to preserve the quality of life for our citizens here in St. Mary's, so that we do have a viable downtown, we have a viable midtown, and we have viable housing communities spread from Crooked River to Point Peter to Osprey Cove. And so the critical work that the NOAA Sea Grant folks are doing for us is absolutely fundamental to the future well-being of this city. And I applaud the efforts, in particular, of the St. Mary's Earth Keepers, Alex Kearns in particular, for enticing the Georgia Sea Grant folks to consider us and winning that particular grant, which, by the way, has not cost the city of St. Mary's one single penny. I want to restate that. This grant did not cost our citizens anything. We will be given a set of options to consider that may cost us some money in the future. But again, each one of these will be weighed, it'll be measured, and it'll be tracked, and it'll be put on a schedule so that we can enhance the quality of life of our city, prepare it for the future of what will happen, not what might happen, what will happen, and go from there.
Mr. Eskridge?
It is very critical that we have in place plans to handle a big flood. You know, we've been very fortunate on our hurricanes. I remember back in around 1955, some of long time ago now, in the bank that I worked in downtown, St. Mary's, Flynn told me, he says, you know, water has been, it's been 3 feet up on the wall. So the water did come in, and it was flooding that area. And I'm sure some people that have lived here that long know what I'm talking about. If we get a hurricane, a big hurricane, there's nothing we can do to stop what's going to happen. It's going to happen. Because we have such a low sea level in St. Mary's. But we can plan and be prepared. And I think that's the key to the whole situation, is be prepared. Thank you.
Ms. Poreski?
I've been involved with that study, and I'm very happy that we had an opportunity to participate in it. We'll be getting recommendations and suggestions hopefully next year. This is a perfect timing since we're going to be working on a master plan for the city also, so that when we do our long-term planning, we can take these items into consideration. Of course, the value of study is only as good as the action that occurs as a result of that study. So I think if I'm on city council, it'll be my goal to make sure we really act upon the recommendations, if not today, that we have plans to do so in the future. We are fortunate in that we already have a community nearby, Satellite Beach, Florida, that is already facing these issues. So I think it would behoove us also to stay in close contact with Satellite Beach to see how they're addressing them, because they're probably a good 10 years or 15 years ahead of us. In fact, I have friends in that area that I'll be visiting later on in December, and I'm going to see if I may even be able to talk to some of the individuals involved in that at that time. So I really think we have to take this study seriously, but also take action on the study. Don't let it just sit. That's going to be the important part, and that's going to be the hard part.
Well, I thought Bob spoke eloquently about the subject, because I echo everything he said. I was certainly voted for the sea level study. I want to say thank you, Alex, and thank you to the Earth Keepers, because they're the ones that brought this to the attention of council. But council acted on it. It acted on it. And that's what leaders do. Yes, we're a little worried about what it might say, but we can't stick our heads in the sand and say it's not going to happen. Because someday it is going to happen. And we have to plan for it. We have to work for it. We have to protect our community. Now, what is that going to take? We don't know. It's going to take more money, which we're very short of. But we've got to have a plan, and we've got to start working towards that plan once it comes out. I was under the impression that the draft could be out as early as the end of this year. So we're going to see that, and I think it's going to lead us down a path that you're all going to be very proud of your council and the Earth Keepers for. And incidentally, we were one of the first in the nation to get this grant. If I remember correctly, I mean, we were a leader in what we're doing here in St. Mary's. We've gotten a lot of press in the different publications on environment and what have you, and the universities, about what St. Mary's is doing here. This is absolutely crucial that we plan for the future. And this is one of those plans that we need to move on once we see what it involves.
Thank you. This is a perennial question in forums over the years. Is there any scenario in which you would favor consolidation of services with the county or city of Kingsland? And if so, which areas do you believe hold the greatest potential for savings and efficiency? If you don't agree with consolidation, please explain why you don't think this will work for St. Mary's. Ms. Polarski?
Give me all the tough ones. I think that there are several areas, and one in particular, that may provide many opportunities for working together. Just like the Joint Development Authority is working on economic development, I feel there's possibly opportunities for us to work closely with the rest of the county on tourism. We're not that big of an area. We should be marketing our little community, our county as much as everything else. We all have different items to offer, and I think we could present a really nice joint package if all the entities are in agreement. I can visualize saving money through brochures that are jointly developed, or having perhaps a higher quality product for the same amount of money we're spending. So from the first thing that comes to my mind, I think there's potential there. And there's probably potential in many other areas also.
Mr. Eskridge?
Years ago, I was against city consolidation, but it seems to be the key word for a lot of the services St. Mary's has. It deals with people. And if we can do the same services as we currently have, and have the people we have working with other communities in the county, I think that's the way to go. Kingsland, since it's so close to us, would be the golden opportunity to work with them on consolidating some services such as tourism, because they're sitting on 95, which is a key north-south route for everyone that's traveling and looking for places to go. And I think tourism is a good area to start. We have the fire department, I think, now is working together with the county and Kingsland, and the police department ought to be next in line to try to get some help there where we save some money on purchasing police cars and use a county police force to handle the whole area. I would like to see that. We just spend too much money on police cars. They don't last that long, and I think if we had a coverage for the county, which included St. Mary's, Kingsland, Woodbine does not have a police force. They use the county. And the county, I think that's the way to go, is another consolidation. There's something that has been really working on my mind that deals with issues dealing with St. Mary being different from the county, and that's taxes. Do you know that St. Mary's is taxed on a different basis from the county? Did you know that the county based their tax base is on a purchase price of a piece of property? I mean a residential property now that you live in is based on that price, and St. Mary's is based on the value put on that property by the county. They're two different issues there. We need to be taxed on the same basis that the county is using to tax county people. I'm on the Board of Equalization, I see it. I can see what's happening. The county properties are, their tax base is worked off of properties that, say you go buy a house, you buy the house for $400,000. That house is appraised at $600,000. County's taxed on $400,000. St. Mary's is taxed on $600,000. Well, a lot of you didn't know that. But it needs to be combined where we're equal.
Thank you, Mr. Escovitch. Mr. Netter?
If my memory serves, we just recently had a consolidation study done on the police department and one on the fire department. And what the bottom line was that neither one of those consolidations at this time would be appropriate. Further, I would not support any consolidation that would add 1 or 2 seconds on response time to our citizens. I feel that our police department and our fire department are critical quality of life departments to have, and it improves our quality of life. Now, what did come out of the fire consolidation in particular was the 911 center could act more efficiently in directing the fire resources. That was a good move. So now what you have is whoever's closest, who's ever not being used, they're the department that responds. So for example, you could have a county ambulance come to St. Mary's to pick up somebody if our ambulances and EMS services are engaged. You can also have a St. Mary's fire truck show up at a Kingsland address if that fire truck happens to be closer and that Kingsland resident does not need to wait for a county fire truck or whatever, or a Kingsland fire truck to show up. So in managing the 911 process and the dispatch of emergency equipment, absolutely that's critical to better management of that resource. With regard to the police department, what would have effectively happened is that had we consolidated with the county, with the sheriff's department, the response time to our citizens would have been adversely impacted. I can't support that at all. So there may be other departments that we need to look at. Tourism has been mentioned. That would certainly be one that might look at it. Possibly further consolidation with the potentially the Main Street program, although I don't think, according to the Department of Community Affairs, that can take place. That still needs to be maybe looked at. But here again, these are departments that also improve our quality of life, but they don't impact the public safety aspect of our life. That's what we're talking about with police and fire, is public safety and security and a sense of calm with our citizens. So I don't think that that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Well, I support Bob in that we just went through a consolidation study for police and fire. I mean, the county and St. Mary's joined together and hired a very experienced consultant to come in and look at the fire departments and the police department. And then we also had the same consultant who is worldwide recognized as being an expert in these kind of things, fire, police, public works, and that kind of thing, came in and looked at the fire department, police department, same consultant. The point I was going to make is that they came up with a conclusion that in the fire departments there was some overlap between the county and the municipalities. And so they drew up a plan to eliminate that overlap. In fact, 2 fire stations actually closed as a result of that. I believe one was in the county, one was in Kingsland. In St. Mary's, they didn't recommend any closing of the fire department, any fire department stations. But they did recommend that another EMS sector be established. And as a result of that study, St. Mary's now, because of the call volume for EMS services, emergency services, got another ambulance zone established with a new ambulance that's serving St. Mary's only. There was a lot of recommendations in there about training and procurement and consolidation of that. But on the police station, police study, on that particular study, they said the police department is doing a great job. They are providing the services that we need. And if we went to a consolidation with the sheriff's department, our services and control would drop unless we wanted to pay more money. So this is an outside source that came in and said this and this and this for both police and fire. And I don't see us walking that dog back and studying it again. I mean, it's been studied. Let's get on with life. Is tourism something we need to look at? Sure. Let's look at anything where we maybe can consolidate. But fire and police is done, in my opinion.
All right. With the spaceport project gaining momentum at Harry's Bluff and groundbreaking is set for spring on the Epic Adventures Park in Kingsland, how can the city position itself to capitalize on these developments? We'll start with Mr. Eskridge.
Well, I think the spaceport should have come to fruition. We need people from our area, St. Mary's area, to get jobs in that area. It's going to offer some technical jobs for individuals. And I think that if we can get it, or the JDA ends up having it come to Marion County, we should be the recipients of a number of people working there, because I don't know, life in St. Mary's, I think it's the best part to live in the county. And I think that's where they'll come, is St. Mary's. So I hope that it goes to, and I hope it becomes operational. I still have that issue with what the base is going to say about it. They might have already approved it. I'm not aware of that they have. But if it's approved by the Navy, then it's a viable operation. Then go with it. Let's get it going.
Ms. Kowarski?
I mentioned earlier, I think that the Epic Center in particular opening up in the near future gives us a sense of urgency in getting our act together on what we will will do to draw individuals visiting that area to our city and in addition. And it's going to take a lot of the organizations working together to come up with a plan so we can have a single voice and be marketing ourselves in the best way possible in order to position ourselves. And maybe being down the road, having a person really situated right inside the Epic Center, passing out brochures, whatever it's going to take. But I think we need to treat it with a sense of urgency if we're going to take advantage of that particular piece. The spaceport isn't going to happen right away. That's going to be moving on a little slower rate. From the presentation the other day, the hope is that, the earliest possible hope is that there would be a first launch in 2018. It's a wonderful opportunity. We will present jobs and draw a lot of people into our community. Jobs not only on site, but jobs at companies that would be moving into the area to establish their business closer to the spaceport. So it's going to be very interesting times. It's going to take a lot of staying on top of issues and a lot of innovation and getting creative so we can really market ourselves and be part of the growing economy as it starts to present itself. I think there's so many opportunities.
The future is bright for Camden County and St. Mary's, because whatever happens in Camden County affects St. Mary's and vice versa. Epic Adventures is exciting. It's a different type of job mix than a spaceport. A spaceport is a game changer. Absolutely a game changer. It could be the biggest thing that happens here since the Navy came in. And it brings in good jobs, and it attracts other businesses, all kinds of businesses that support space and commercial space. Initially, they'll go for vertical launch because they can get that in place the quickest. But vertical launch is also very important. And a 12,000-foot runway does work on this property. We've proved that. So that's what's needed for vertical launch also. The space people like this place. They love it. We have the best location, in my opinion, in the whole United States. And we've really looked into this. The mayor and I have been very involved in spaceport. But we've got the best place. Unfortunately, Georgia's behind in making it happen. You know, Texas is ahead of us and some of the other states. But the space companies are waiting. They're waiting for us to get that land locked down, get the EIS completed, and they're here. I guarantee you they'll be here. And when they come, they're bringing everything with them. Cape Canaveral, think of Cape Canaveral, but think something similar like that here in St. Mary's and Camden County. And think of the jobs. We can keep people here. Our students who are leaving us because there's no jobs. Now, here's jobs. Also, it's exciting that here's the Navy base announcing a little off what we're talking about, just announcing a couple hundred more jobs out of the Trident Reef facility. They're growing, and that mission can grow also. And Epic Adventures, and Camden County is the place to be. Just stick around long enough. It'll be here. I want to mention the Navy. The Navy is well aware of what's happening. This spaceport is 10 miles away from the Navy base. This is all informal. There's nothing formal about what I'm saying, but there's been no objection. Now, they will be a part of the EIS. When that study is conducted, the Navy then will have the opportunity to make their comments. But there's been nothing that we've heard from any Navy official that would suggest that that's a problem. So I don't think that's really an issue. But I don't know that. I'm just saying, unofficially, that seems to be the fact.
Mr. Matter?
Well, I have to agree with Jim that these are exciting times on multiple levels and everything. The Epic Center, if you compare it even in a slight way with Disney World, you'll know that Disney World is in Orlando, but you have the surrounding towns of St. Cloud and Kissimmee and so on and so forth that have just grown exponentially in support of what's going on at Disney World. Can we see that here in Camden County? I think it's a very distinct possibility as that project evolves and comes to full construction, which is probably not going to be for somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 construction's going to start next year in all probability, but it's going to take a while to fully build out the park and the complex issue and the complexes that are going to be a part of it, from the retail to movies to rides and games and ballparks and sports facilities and so on and so forth. A lot of that's going to take time. And when it does, it's going to be like dropping a rock in a pond, and the ripple effect is going to go out. Will we be there as fast as Kingsland? No, we're not. And so don't even think that. But St. Mary's will be caught up in the ripples from that pond. When it comes to the spaceport, we know that just here in the United States alone, not everything goes off at Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Station or Space Center. Not every rocket takes off there. You have Vandenberg in California, you have Wallops Island, you have it, and now Brownsville, Texas. And while people might say Brownsville killed St. Mary's, that's not exactly true. Brownsville, Texas only has one little shot to hit Earth orbit, and that's if they thread the needle between Florida and Cuba. That's their only launch window, and that's it. And they cannot reach Mars from there. Elon Musk, who owns SpaceX, opened Brownsville. He's also one of the prime people that's looking here at St. Mary's. I mean, at the spaceport off of Harriet's Bluff. One of the reasons he likes it here is you can hit Mars. This is the easiest launch position, and even geographically better than Cape Kennedy, to hit Mars. And that's where he wants to go. There's also Blue Origin. Boeing is looking at these opportunities as well. But first, what we've got to do is finish the land acquisition. As Jim mentioned, the EIS, the environmental impacts study. And at each one of these stages along the way, the public will have input as these progress. So again, stay informed, stay involved, and speak your mind as these meetings come about.
Thank you. St. Mary's still carries a considerable amount of debt due to upgrades made several years ago to the city's water and wastewater treatment system. How can the city manage these financial obligations in a way that does not stifle future growth and progress? Mr. Adams, you start with that.
Thank you. I was really going to listen to everybody else on that one. First and foremost, let me commend our finance department. They have been the recipient of a number of awards, and one of the reasons they have is because of their management of our financial resources. Right, and that goes hand in glove with the guidance by the council, for example, most recently with the latest SPLOST that was voted in earlier this year, and the commitment of funds from that towards the debt. I have absolutely no concerns that the city will meet its debt obligation on the water sewer treatment plant. What my concerns are with that water treatment plant are some of the upgrades that I think should be put into place that are just kind of mulling around in the back of my mind right now, and there's been no action taken yet. But I think that that plant is in prime location to help improve the quality of life in our city as we expand the delivery of sewer services throughout our city. We have made promises to that. We need to keep those promises to our city, and we have, thankfully, the capacity to take that on.
Mr. Gann?
Yes. Well, first, I want to have everybody clap like that, because you saved St. Mary's so much when you passed SPLOST 7. Without SPLOST 7, your water and sewer rates would have gone up, and we'd all been hung. But what's happening here with SPLOST 7, the City Council has pledged $11 million of SPLOST money to offset the increased debt service that we're going to see starting in December. And without that, we would have had to do something, because you have to pay your debts, and that increase is for sure. But with that $11 million from SPLOST, we'll be able to maintain our water sewer rates as they are. And say what Bob says. You know, we've got a very sound financial picture in St. Mary's, not only in water sewer, but on our waste management and our general fund. Do you know that we have, and usually it averages out over the year, about $4 million in reserve in our general fund? Do you know how much Kingsland has? 400,000. Now, is that good management or is that good management? And so we try to remember that we represent you, the taxpayers. We don't want you to pay a nickel more than you have to maintain the services. But you shouldn't worry about water sewer because you voted in SPLOST 7 and thank God you did.
Ms. Morrison.
I think of the debt relating to the infrastructure improvements as the mortgage on the house. The city has ensured that they have good control over that mortgage, and like everything else, it was an investment in our future. I think now that we have it established, I tend, as I mentioned earlier, to be more proactive than reactive. Now that we have it in place, it's essential that we have a good maintenance plan to make sure that it is top order and well cared for, so that we will have it good for a long period of time and nothing will sneak in on us unexpectedly as far as the emergency repairs. I also think part of the solution to our debt is going to be the increased users. There is an advantage to having this infrastructure in place. If we didn't have it in place, we couldn't possibly attract new homes and businesses. But it is in place. Future's looking better. The more rooftops we put in, any businesses we bring in increases the user, which will help offset the debt in the long run. It was a very good investment in our future. We were expecting that we would be having more users immediately. It didn't happen. The economy just went take up. That's the way it is. But there's signs of it coming back, and I think we're in very good shape because we made those changes. And like I said, now it's a matter of being proactive and maintaining it and keeping it good for all the new users too.
Thank you. Mr. Eskridge.
Thank goodness for SPLOST. I can remember when we started SPLOST years ago, and thank goodness it's been an ongoing revenue source for the city of St. Mary's. But I'd like to put a bug in the current councilman's ears on something I'd like to see them do on that sewage treatment plant. I tried to get it done when I was mayor, but my council wouldn't go along with it. We need some area within that treatment plant where these people that come in and empty septic tanks have a place to empty that sewage into this sewage treatment plant. There's not a place for it to go. They have to take it to Brunswick. That's a revenue source for the city. If the city would just have it, and it's not that expensive to get it built into the current sewage treatment plant right now. But that's just a little bug I want to put in your ear to try to get it done. We need it. You've got a number of people living in the city still on septic. And they have to have those septics cleaned on a regular basis. And they need to have it someplace they can unload it. So take that in consideration and try to get it done. If I make council, I'm going to make that same recommendation. But, thank goodness for SPLOST. And it has increased every year. It's gotten larger and larger. And by the way, Jim, when I left office, we had $5 million in reserve.
Whoa, very good.
Thank you.
Here's another excellent question from a Tribune and Georgian reader. The rationale for creating the Maritime Historic District was presented in 2013. However, there has been little evidence of progress towards implementing the plan. Are you in favor of the plan? And if so, what needs to be done to enhance the concept? Mr. Gann?
Well, first of all, I'm very much in favor of the Maritime Heritage Plan. It protects our water side, just like zoning protects on the south, on the land side. There are a lot of things in the plan that certainly improving our docking areas, our restrooms, being more hospitable to boaters when they come into town. I don't think we do a good job of policing the boaters. Some of them are derelicts. We need to get rid of the derelicts when that happens. But it is in place. Now, how do we police it? That's another story. And I guess we're talking staffing. I know recommendations have been made that we need to hire some kind of a maritime policeman to go around and check the boats to make sure that they're complying with things like pollution requirements and what have you. When we passed this Maritime Heritage District, we were visualizing that someday St. Mary's would be another Beaufort or Mystic Harbor up in Connecticut. We visualized that in time we'd have some three-masters out here, and we'd have lots of boats coming in, sailboats and what have you coming in. That hasn't materialized yet, but it will happen. We have such a beautiful waterfront. We need more businesses on the land side to service those boats that come in. We need to accommodate tour boats when they are up and down the intercoastal but don't come into St. Mary's only maybe once or twice a year. But this was the framework for what we see in the future. But we haven't really seen a lot of progress in making that a reality, but we put the framework in place. We need to do more work in that. That harbor, that waterfront and the harbor is a jewel, and we just need to make it even better and better and better.
Thank you. Mr. Eskridge.
I don't think anything else can be said about that waterfront. We do have a jewel, a real jewel. I live close to it. My wife walks by it every morning. I walk with her occasionally. But it is a real jewel. But I'm not sure Jim knows that there is a problem on the waterfront. We've had silt filter into that waterfront, and then the property that is bought from the Gilpin property that we're trying to develop. At low tide, a boat can't even dock there because you'll be sitting in mud. Something's got to be done to clean that up. The mud has come in, and it comes in with the tide, and you got problems. And that's a particular area as far as having boats to come in and dock. Now, the sailboats, you see them out in the harbor, that looks nice. It really is. It's very impressive. A three-master would be great down on the waterfront. But we've got to watch that mud that's coming in on the tide and make sure these boats, when they come in, they don't get stuck and can't get out. This is something I think that your group, Jim, needs to really study.
Mr. Morrissey.
I think putting that in place was a very wise thing for the city to do. That waterfront and the waterways are one of our natural treasures there's so much potential there. It's such a big part of who we are that we would want to do everything we can to protect it and utilize it to our advantage at the same time. I know that at this point we've received some grants that allowed us to put in some docks. I believe there's other grants that are in process, hopefully to extend that. I think that it does need to be monitored and watched and look for new and creative ways to use the waterfront and promote the waterfront. Really, when I look at our waterfront, it is so much more beautiful than the downtown Fernandina waterfront. It really is. It's a real treasure. And I really think that this city can really grow around that waterfront and really bring individuals down to St. Mary's to utilize it and enjoy it as much as we do. It just takes working together and getting it done and giving it a little priority and taking action.
Thank you, Mr. Better.
And I too would agree with what's been said. pack of bologna and a loaf of bread and a six-pack of beer. You don't have that downtown, and that's would be a viable business, but it's also a chicken and egg kind of a business idea as well. Do I build it and hope they will come, or do I wait till they come and then I will build it? The Maritime Heritage District kind of defines the area upon which we can do this, both a water side and a land side, to help define what can go in where and how that goes about. It also provides the framework upon which we can have a dock master potentially down there that would manage the ships, whether they be on a mooring ball or whether they be at one of the mooring or the dockside mooring facilities to keep that going. As with anything that gets its start, there's going to be fits and starts as we manage that program, but what we've got in place right now is the framework upon which we can now build.
Thank you. That concludes the Q&A portion of the program. We're going to allow the candidates to say a few words in closing, starting with Mr. Gannon.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Jill and the Tribune and all those who did some... Oh, you can't hear me. I'd like to start the clock. I'd like to thank Jill, the Tribune, and everyone that worked so hard in putting this forum together. It really was a great forum, and I'd like to say we need to give them a hand. Let's give them a hand, okay? And I'd like to another hand, and I think that hand should go to every one of you that came here tonight. You gave up your precious time at home to come here and listen to us talk about very important things for the city of St. Mary's, but you did it. And so I want to propose, let's give you a hand. Anyway, I want to tell you that it's been an honor to serve the city of St. Mary's for the last 3 years, almost 3 years anyway. We've accomplished a lot. That doesn't mean we don't have a lot left to accomplish. But we will, in the next 4 years, we'll do everything we can to represent all the citizens of St. Mary's. I certainly do not represent any one particular group or person. I love St. Mary's, the whole of St. Mary's. Anytime anybody has a question or a complaint or whatever, they're free to call me up and come to me, and I will get back to them. They might not always like what I have come back to them with, but I will get back to them, and I think I've proven that over the last 3 years. I'm proud to live in St. Mary's. It has a wonderful future ahead of us, and I'm just anxious to get on with it, meet the challenges, and make this place an even better place, St. Mary's, Georgia. Thanks.
Ms. Forrest.
I thank you all for coming this evening, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jill and the newspaper and the college for making this happen. I really feel that there was a lot of good information shared here. I would like to say that I really appreciate the time and the effort and the service that my opponent has given to the city in the past. I also believe that these are different times and a different economy, and new strategies are needed in order to move the city forward. I really feel that we need to build an environment that has new ideas, new perspectives, new enthusiasm, and new energy, and I truly believe I will bring all those qualities to the council. I look forward to serving this community, and I am asking you for your vote. And in return, I will listen to every single one of you, even those who are not here, even those who never vote. I feel that's a very important responsibility of an elected official. I promise you I will do my homework. I will talk to others with differing opinions so I understand all the issues before I make a decision so it can be the best decision I can possibly make. I will represent every single individual in St. Mary's with enthusiasm, with energy, and with creativity, because that's who I am, and I also like to get things done. I think anyone who knows me knows I'm less about talking and more about getting things done. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration, and I'll be happy to talk to anyone after the event. Thank you.
Mr. Eskridge.
I too would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. This is probably the first forum since I've been mayor and councilman I've attended. That's usually a short forum in another location. But it's good to see all of you that are interested in what's going on in St. Mary's County tonight. With my years of experience as a councilman and mayor, I feel with all the education that I have gone through, the numerous government courses I have taken, will allow me to know what to do and who to contact on questions that have come forth to the council. I feel that more than an education a person has, if he or she fails to use good common sense, they just do not have the ability to do the job that's needed to be a good city councilman. And I promise you that I will use my education that I have had, 27 government courses, which my opponent has got to start taking once she is elected, has to start taking. I can hit the ground running. I know what to do. I know what to do at council meetings. I know what to do on different situations according to the Georgia law. And I appreciate each and every one of you giving me your confidence by giving me your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Nutter.
Again, I'll start with thank yous to the audience for giving up your time this evening. I appreciate it. And also Jill and her staff for hosting this particular forum and coming up with some really pretty tough questions for us, I think. I believe that each of you who were here this evening learned a little bit more about us, each one of us as a person. I have been honored to serve for this last year and do hope to garner your vote for the next 4 years. And one of the things that really gives me heart, and heartens me, I should say, with regard to our council, just happened recently at a council meeting where a young man by the name of Max felt comfortable and felt safe in an environment to step up in front of the audience that was there and speak his mind about an issue that he had a concern about. Now, you know, if we can set that type of tone for our citizens, from a young man to come forward, I mean, I don't think I would have had the guts or glory or desire to get up and speak in front of adults at his age, but he did. Then I think that everyone can feel safe and secure that they will be heard, their issue will be given its due course, and that you'll get an answer to your concerns. That's the type of environment that I want to continue to foster, should I be honored to be able to serve you again and earn your vote in November. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a hand. I do feel like we threw you some tough questions tonight. You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you so much for participating in our event tonight. And thanks to the audience. I encourage you to gather with us in the rotunda after the event. You can speak informally to the candidates more. Maybe you have some questions of your own.